Well, thanks for joining Local 3's podcast, Breaking Ground, where we discuss all things labor, labor history, politics, and organizing as it relates to Operating Engineers Local 3. And speaking of politics, and since it's a big election year, I'm happy to have on the show with us today two important staff members from the political department. We have Political Director Chris Snyder
and Deputy Political Director Patrick Boileau.
Let's begin first by having you both explain your backgrounds and what it is that you do for the Local 3 membership today. Let's start with you, Patrick.
I'm the Deputy Political Director. My background, I'm a second generation OE3 member. My dad was a business rep. He rep public employees in the District 1 and then became the research director and retired when I was in middle school, so around 2004. I came up into the union sort of a different path. I enlisted in the Navy and was a intelligence analyst and learned a lot about computers and data and how to manipulate things. So when I got out of the service, I was working on a number of campaigns all over California and elsewhere. And the job as a political coordinator, deputy political director came up, and I applied for it. And I've been on staff for 5 years and loving it.
My name is Chris Snyder. I'm the political director for the Operating Engineers Local 3. I came out of the field. When I was a young man, I was born in Iowa, raised in Minnesota, and when I was like 19, I wanted to I wanted to make money, and I ended up going to Alaska and working on fishing boats and crab boats, and for about 6 or 7 years. Somehow ended up in Russia for a minute in there, and I learned a lot about the water, and I also learned a lot about labor there too in some ways, because there wasn't a lot of protections there, and I had some situations where actually some of the local unions helped myself out and some of my shipmates out in some really tough situations. And then I ended up getting injured on a crab boat. And I got a settlement, and I wanted to better myself, so I ended up going to Seattle Maritime Academy and getting my captain's license and my able-bodied seaman's card and all my maritime certs. And while I was there, there was the WTO riots that went on, and a lot of it was around inequality. And we went down with some of the unions. It kind of opened my eyes and really made me even more interested in labor. As soon as I graduated, I got into the union because I just saw the value in it, and eventually got into dredging from my tugboat experience. I worked on dredge projects for a few years, and then got involved in our VOTE program, which was the CAT program then, and started volunteering at my district level and was volunteer of the year. Next thing I knew, I'm a business agent, or an organizer, then a business agent and area rep. And so I've kind of gone through the whole internal process of different roles in Local 3, and then eventually became the political director. I also got my political science degree somewhere in there because I thought I really did see the value in politics and how it could promote the welfare of our members. And to me, politics is the biggest return on investment we can do as a union, because for every dollar we spend, we get projects and better laws for workers and that kind of thing. So I really believe in the political process, and that's why I'm here today. And I'm a real honor to serve the membership and the officers in this capacity as a political director. And I take it seriously, and I try real hard to go out every day and fight for the members with Patrick here.
Well, let's start with the basics then today. So Local 3 represents 14 districts across 4 states, California, Nevada, Utah, and Hawaii. How does the political process work at the district level?
So the political process works at the district level, and this is all out of Local 3's bylaws, is that the rank and file are elected out of the districts at their quarterly meetings, and we elect 3 PAC members every couple of years. And the executive board member from that district, who serves on the executive board of the whole union, chairs that meeting, and then the district rep is the secretary of that meeting, so he takes the minutes and he helps facilitate all the interviews. So every endorsement, whether it's school board, city council, supervisor, or even endorsements around, like if we're supporting a school bond measure or a road tax measure in the district, is vetted by your local political action committee, which is rank and file men and women that actually work in the field in the district. So all the recommendations, I mean, they're not from the union, they're from the union, but they're from the men and women that actually work in the field that, know and care about the issues that affect us. And so it's very democratic, and it works really well for us, and it really gets the buy-in of the membership within the districts.
So say a politician were to come in before the political action committee, what were some of the questions that they might ask them?
They ask them questions that like directly relate to the operating engineer. So we're not talking about, guns or abortion rights or anything like that. Everything is directly related to us. So it's like funding for roads, funding for bridges, funding for your water systems so that we have healthy and clean water in our in our regions. Talking about school construction, whether they support union labor on it and prevailing wages. And prevailing wages is kind of a catch-all phrase for wages that are connected or pegged to our collective bargaining agreement, so that all contractors that bid on that work in that area have a fair shot and kind of an equal shot at getting that work. So those are the kind of things that we talk about almost exclusively.
Yeah, we also ask them about whether they support project labor agreements, which are agreements that go above and beyond prevailing wage and make sure that union members are working on these projects. Because operating engineers represent so many public employees, we also ask them questions about contracting out, making sure that the work that's done by public employees now doesn't end up going to a private contractor or get sublet out, and keeps those public workers working on the public jobs that they're already at.
I'd say there are a couple other things too, is like on bigger labor values that we all share even with other unions, is like, if you saw a picket line, would you cross it? What do you think of right to work, which is, basically free riders, living off the union without paying their dues? What do you feel about those issues? So we ask those kind of questions too that pertain to the whole labor movement.
It's basically, the union does the homework for the members at the district level. So when those endorsements are printed in the Engineers News, especially the local endorsements, you can rest assured that each one of those candidates on that list have been vetted by your member-elected political action committee.
That's right, Mandy. That's exactly right.
Another program that we have in the political department is the sort of grassroots mobility program. It's the VOTE program, which stands for Voice of the Engineer. Members in each district are encouraged to participate in this program. Can you explain kind of what this program does, the incentives to participate, and why it's important for the members to be engaged in this program?
Sure. So the VOTE program gives credit for engagement in political actions that are going on in your district. So this could be precinct walks, this could be phone banks, this could be showing up at a city council meeting and making public comment about some vote that the city council is going to take. And over the course of the year, there's these vote opportunities that are being advertised by the district. At the end of the year, we get these reports from all the districts of who volunteered at what events. We put that all together, and we reward all the volunteers who came out and helped us out on their own time at these events. So we'll give them, they'll get a letter from the business manager thanking them for their service, usually a pin or a keychain, something small that they can keep on them, and then a larger gift. In the past, we've done water bottles, backpacks, camping chairs, as well as an up to $200 Visa gift card that they can use to spend on whatever they want. And it's just our way of saying thank you to the volunteers for spending the time outside of work hours advocating for their union.
Yeah, and I would say, the VOTE program is so important because there's, if you want to get involved in your union, we're only as strong as the membership. Money only goes so far, and we do donate, and we do things like the Engineers News that Mandy edits. But it's that membership engagement, like on a day-to-day level, especially those that live in the community, that really affect change for you. And the VOTE program is that opportunity to give back to your union. But when you're giving back to your union, you're also giving back to yourself, because we're literally out there fighting for permits for quarries for our members. We're out there fighting for funding. We've done we did a huge fight just recently around a casino in Roanoke Park where we had a $2 billion PLA. Our members went out to work for it, but we had folks show up and advocate for it. It's just, it's such a core piece of what the union does, and we can't do this without our membership. And so we need, you know, all of the members to stay engaged as much as they can, and it is really for, you know, for the whole.
So say someone is kind of nervous or they don't really know what to expect. Talk about like what a precinct walk looks like.
Yeah, most of these things is it's a great exercise. You get to learn about your community. You walk door to door in your community, you knock on doors, and most of the time it's our members talking to our members or our members talking to other union members about the issues, whether it's prevailing wage, right to work, you know, why this candidate supports, you know, more road funding or more infrastructure water funding. So it's usually pretty easy and it's pretty interesting, and I find it, you know, very rewarding. It's good exercise, but it is. We do training. There's an app on your phone, so you know, use your phone if there's a script. If you have any questions, we're all like a phone call away. Usually we pair up with another person that's more experienced. So if somebody's got a question, you can grab your fellow Local 3 member and say, hey, you know, what's, you know, this project, or what's, you know, what does right to work mean, or whatever the questions are.
The studies have shown, right, that member-to-member communication is way more effective in campaigns than if you just drop a flyer on a doorstep. People generally throw that away. But if you have one union member talking to another union member, they're going to pay attention more than just a flyer
Absolutely.
on the door.
You're dead on. I didn't mean to cut you off, because you're so right, Mandy, on this, and it goes right back to, you know, how our political action committees are structured. Is like, we have vetted all these folks, we've vetted all these issues, and our membership knows that. And so when we're talking to our members about a candidate or a bond measure or a tax measure, I mean, it's going to break through more than some random, you know, ad that pops up on your Facebook feed or an ad that you see watching, you know, between Super Bowls, because it is, you know, our members know that, you know, we're out there fighting for them and fighting for their livelihoods and fighting for their pensions and their health care and all the core values that we hold as, you know, Local 3 members.
Yeah, the same goes for the city council meetings and the like. When a politician or a city council member, board of supervisors member, even state legislature hears from a member directly about how this law is going to impact them or how their personal story relates to the issue being discussed, it has a powerful effect on the politician. It can really change minds.
So if members are interested in getting involved in the vote program, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Through their district hall, there's a sign up at every district hall. And every district's got different issues. I mean, when we do our, me and Patrick always do 2 hours every year with every apprenticeship class. And we don't even talk about, you know, the government structure. What we really talk about is, you know, politics as it relates to us. And every district is, you know, you could go through District 1 is working on the DTX, which is this multi-billion-dollar project that's going to put hundreds of our members to work, connecting Caltrain and high-speed rail into the Transbay Terminal. You know, District 20, we worked really hard to try to keep the A's. That one didn't work out, but we got a ton of other work that's going to go in the A's stadium. District 90, we're always working on these tech campus projects to get permitting because we have PLAs, all union agreements with Google, Facebook, Apple. The list goes on and on. Fresno, the high-speed rail, I mean, that was a ballot measure that we supported back in '06. And we have over 400 members as we do this interview today working on that job. Over 2,000 craftspeople are on the job. Over 12,000 dispatches have been done to that job. And this is just political action and work, and it directly relates to members making money, members having health care, their pensions being there long-term, training opportunities for apprenticeships, and all of it at some point has to go through a political process, whether it's the funding, the permitting, the structure of how the work is led. It's all so intricately related in our democracy, and it's key for us to participate in that.
Pretty much any project our members are working on that came about because of our work behind the scenes in politics.
In one shape, way or another, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all part of the whole system that we're in. And if we're not engaged, somebody else is going to be out there eating our lunch, whether it's the non-union or other crafts even sometimes. Most of the time we get along with all the crafts, but other people are out there doing this work, and if we're not engaged, we're going to lose out on opportunities for our membership.
And I think that's the biggest challenge for us is getting that engagement piece and sort of the education of understanding how this all plays out. The country and our union have wildly divisive views on politics. Some of our members are very engaged and other people just don't have any interest in it, or they just don't see how it impacts them personally. Can you explain why engagement in politics is so important to operating engineers and what the benefits of engagement in the political process are for our members?
Sure. Well, as Chris mentioned earlier, one of the parts of our job is that we go out and talk to every apprenticeship class about politics. And we start off that talk by asking them why they joined the union. And it is practically the same set of issues for every single class. They want good paying jobs. They want a pension. They want health care for their families. They want steady work. And
Access to training.
access to training,
Safety.
absolutely, safety, 100%. These are, again, class after class after class comes up with these issues, and they're shouting them out to us as we're putting up a whiteboard. All of those things are in effect because a law was passed or a funding bill was passed or it touched the political process at some point.
Yeah, and I would say, that is our common values, and your department, the political department, and the PR department put out an amazing video on, how Local 3 does politics, and I encourage folks to go look at that. But it's just to Patrick's point is that in this really complex, diverse, we represent members of all races, all sexes, all creeds, all religions, but how do you break through all that? And at the very core, those are the things that we're here for. Yeah, we all want everybody to have a good wage, to be able to buy a house, to have health care, to have a pension, to have ongoing training. So as technology changes, we have this amazing facility right outside of Sacramento here where we can train on drones or new GPS technologies and even AI stuff as it comes into it. We're so intertwined as a union in those things that is the core, is those common and those are our common values. And when we go out and do politics, that's what we're focused on. And all that funding comes from the work. So that's I guess that it sounds very simple, but it's not always simple. But that's the place that we come from as a union. It's a place that even our bylaws kind of spell that out. That that we're that's kind of our founding document, is that we're here to advance the membership's standard of living, which is good wages, good health care, good pension, the ability to retire with dignity, and also ongoing training. So that we can have those things. And the way we do it on the political side is, we advocate day in and day out from morning to noon for projects and for laws that, support our values.
Every endorsement that we make, whether that's a politician or a bill, it all relates to the protection and maintenance and improvement of those core values. We're never going to get involved in the social issues because that doesn't impact our work. But if it impacts our work, and we put a candidate's name in the magazine, we would suggest that you would vote for that person because that's only going to further your job security and maintain and protect those core values that we talked about. And a lot of it has to do with legislation, like you already mentioned. Yeah. Can you touch on a few bills that OE3 helped pass and how those bills positively impact us? I know there's a lot.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that I really wish I could take every member behind the scenes, because when you're sitting out on a piece of equipment, or you're in a crane, or you're, a public employee, even in an office somewhere, you have an entire group of folks that are behind you, working behind the scenes day and night, trying to make sure that, what you're doing, you can keep doing. So when that job ends, there's another job ready for you. And that if that job is something in a new area that is related to us, that it's going to be done with prevailing wage and with labor standards that you're used to. I'd say one of our bigger, prouder moments is we all went through the devastation of the wildfires in Northern California. I was in Sonoma as a district rep when they tore through my own community. And out of that experience working with FEMA, we found that a lot of the cleanup work wasn't covered by prevailing wage, that a lot of the tree removal work after wasn't done by prevailing wage, even though the same equipment was being used, was something that we should have been able to do. So they had a lot of folks coming from out of state that were not doing hazmat, that had the ability to be paid California minimum wage, which was $15 an hour. Some of these folks are used to $7 an hour back where $7.25 federal minimum wage. So out of that experience, we went to legislator. We said, hey, this is, our communities should be able to rebuild themselves, and the only way we could do this is with labor standards that we're used to. So we had one of our good friends, Assemblywoman Cecilia Aguilar-Curry, sponsored a prevailing wage bill for us, so that now going forward, prevailing wage for fire mitigation work is going to be covered under prevailing wage, and our contractors are going to be able to bid it, and our members are going to be able to do that work going forward. Also, we had a lot of problems with the bidding process when it came to the fire cleanup for cleaning up homes and businesses. And the pro tem, our good friend Senator Mike McGuire, sponsored a bill to ensure that we had apprenticeship standards and wage standards in fire cleanup. So one was the cleanup. We got prevailing wage and labor and apprenticeship standards. And then one was the mitigation. So it's like clearing forests ahead of time to make sure these things don't happen again. So those are two big pieces of legislation that we're all very proud of. We worked with the organizing department. We worked with our lobbyists up in Sacramento. We worked with a lot of the districts to help do outreach to their assembly folks that this bill was passed. So that's the kind of work that we're working on every day.
And then this year, one of the bills that we're working with Assemblymember Joe Patterson, who's a Republican out of the Yuba City area. And we came to him with a bill idea that would tighten up some of the regulations around how projects are reported in the state database, and making a few changes that we think are really going to help our compliance department catch these bad actors, these contractors who are not paying prevailing wage, who are undercutting the union contractors and stealing work from our members. So we work with everybody. We work with Democrats like Cecilia Aguilar-Curry. We work with Republicans like Joe Patterson. We work on bills that are going to help the members.
Yeah, and I think that's a reflection of our membership too. I mean, we work both sides of the aisle. Assemblyman and a Republican majority or minority leader, James Gallagher, we've been working hand in glove with him on the Sites Reservoir, which is going to be the first very large scale dam and water project built in the state in many, many decades, and it's going to put hundreds and hundreds of our members to work. And funny enough, Gavin Newsom is working with Assemblyman Gallagher on that too. So there are issues. Our issues cut across the aisle. I mean, Republicans, Democrats, everybody wants safe drinking water. Everybody wants, the ability for California to have water, and good roads, and safe bridges, and amazing infrastructure. It's a bipartisan issue, and that's kind of one of the beauties of doing politics in our role as a local, is that we, what we do cuts across all of society and is supported by who doesn't like infrastructure.
We talked a lot about politicians that have helped us in our efforts, but there's forces daily working against unions. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. One of the first big issues that I worked on when I came on staff was the No on Prop 6 campaign, which was an attempt to repeal SB 1, which was a funding measure used gas tax money, protected gas tax money, to fund roads and bridges all across California.
To the tune of $5 billion a year forever.
Yeah.
So our work.
California, over the last several decades, criminally underinvested in infrastructure. We were in a $200 billion hole when it came to our investment infrastructure. Despite all that, the yes on Prop 6, the attempt to repeal this SB1 money, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to try to get this law overturned. And we fought against that hard and spent a lot of money ourselves talking to Californians and educating them on Prop 6. So there are absolutely people who will spend millions and millions of dollars to try to keep workers down, to try to keep the investment in infrastructure low.
It's all about the money for corporate interests. I mean, it's expensive to pay workers a fair share if you're just talking about the bottom dollar.
Yeah, and I think it's a great question because we're under attack in DC. We're under attack at different state capitals, and we've talked a lot about California this morning. But if we kind of like zoom out a little bit, we have 4 other states, and we have great examples of what happens when those forces succeed. And Utah and Nevada are 2 great examples. Utah went right to work, where nobody has to pay dues, but the union still has to represent the members. They did that first in the early 80s, and then right after that they repealed their state prevailing wage, which gives our contractors and our members the ability to bid jobs at our wage rates, and it levels the playing field. It was a race to the bottom. Their total package was cut in half. I think they went from $20-some an hour for an operator down to the teens. This is the 80s, so it was very low. We lost market share. The labor movement basically imploded in Utah. Nevada had a similar thing, but Nevada is kind of a hybrid state, so they don't have to pay dues, but they still have prevailing wage. And again, market share is still less because of that, and their wages are less because of that as well, because we don't have the same amount of funds over there to fight for better working conditions. Because the whole plan is, you cut the dues, the union can't fight for you, and when the union can't fight for you, they can go after our wage rates, then they go after our apprenticeship programs, then they go after a lot of the OSHA stuff, and it really does, tilt everything in favor of big business and corporations, and it really takes our voice away. So those are the kind of things that we fight, against nationally and on a state by state basis.
You've already talked a little bit about the common goals we have as union members when it comes to politics. Every endorsement bill that we make or don't make stems from protecting and strengthening these core values. But as we said in the very beginning, this is a big election year, 2024. There are some key races that you want our members to be aware of. Can you talk a little bit about some of those key races?
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of races here in 2024. One I particularly wanted to highlight was a state senate race that's going on in Alameda and Contra Costa counties. OE3's endorsed Jesse Arreguin, who's currently the mayor of Berkeley. In the last 8 years that he's been mayor of Berkeley, he has been a real advocate for construction workers and union members in that position. He passed a helmet to hard hats measure in that city, which gives preference for workers who are veterans. He has a big problem with homeless veterans and wanted to give an incentive for employers to hire homeless veterans into the construction industry to give them a career after the military. He also passed the PLA on all the project work that's going on in his downtown. They're building a lot of housing as well as some commercial stuff in their downtown area. And that PLA means that it's all union workers on the project. So even if it's a non-union contractor who wins the bid, they have to go to the hiring hall, they have to go to Operating Engineers Local 3 in order to get the hands in order to do the work. So we really think that he's going to be an excellent state senator, and want to really encourage everyone to go out and volunteer for him. And if you're living in that district, please vote for Jesse. The other race I wanted to highlight was something that happened actually in 2022. Aisha Wahab ran for state senate in the lower part of Alameda County and Santa Clara County. She was an operating engineer member before she ran for state senate. She was one of our public employee members. She had been previously elected to city council down there and ran for state senate. And she's just been in office now for almost a year now. And she's been doing all sorts of innovative things. I mean, that's the benefit of having a union member who gets elected to these positions, is that they know our issues. So one of the things that she did was she ran a bill last year that would require PLAs on any state project over $35 million. It's something that mirrors what the Biden administration did on the federal level. But it didn't end up getting passed, but it's that kind of advocacy that we really need at the state level.
Well, we want to tell our members, right, if they want to get engaged in politics, that they can participate in our vote program. But another step with that would be just to run for office, because they obviously understand our core values more than someone who's not involved in union membership. So that's another thing that members can do, consider running for an elected position.
Absolutely. And if any member does want to run for office, they should get in touch with us at the political department, because we can help getting them in touch with other unions, folks at the local level who they can coordinate with. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say two of our other proud moments is we have another member, Assembly District 22, Jessica Self. She used to be chair of the party in that area. She's one of our more active members. She's running for Assembly this year, and we're all in for her. We're really excited about that race. And then I think you might have interviewed Dolores Morales before, but she's just a dynamo. She's the president of SEMA, which is one of our bigger public employee affiliates, and she's the vice mayor of Hollister. She sits in a lot of really important positions on the planning commission down there, and has helped us implement some really innovative stuff around getting our members work through prevailing wage and PLA type stuff. So it's really exciting when our own members are sitting in those seats there where big decisions are being made, because they understand where we're coming from. Kind of Patrick was talking about some stuff that Aisha's doing. She's actually has a PLA proposal on the table, which would, any job over $35 million would be all union statewide. They have it in Illinois. I'm kind of shocked we haven't, California being, so pro-labor, don't have it here. So she's modeled that after Joe Biden's infrastructure law, where he's trying to do everything, federal projects over 35 million that would be under PLA. So two really amazing pieces of legislation that we're looking at this year.
I want to talk a little bit about Nevada. Local 3 in the Nevada district, along with the Nevada afl-cio, were able to make some great gains in the 2022 election. We were able to secure the re-election of the pro-union Senator Catherine Cortez Masto in that state.
Yep.
Nevada, we call it a battleground state. Can you talk a little bit about why it's called that, and what is expected in Nevada this year, and what do we need our union members to do to help there?
Yeah, and there's two ways we could look at this. I mean, one of the big, obvious, the national election, and Joe Biden is his re-election is the big elephant in the room, or the big political event of the year. And the operating engineers has endorsed Joe Biden. We did at our last national convention, and whatever you think of the man, he's been the most pro-union president in the history of America. And I would say you could even argue more than Roosevelt, who actually signed the National Labor Relations Act. He's done more for the operating engineers than any president by far in my lifetime, with the signing of the Infrastructure Investment Act. Over $3 trillion of money is going into roads and bridges, and literally putting hundreds of thousands of operating engineers to work across the nation rebuilding our infrastructure. He also did the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a lot of investment in new technologies and green technologies. And I just went to a conference with his climate czar, John Podesta, last week, and we were talking about, it's just, I can't even tell you how amazing it is, because it's $300 billion, but it's going to translate into probably over $1 trillion because the matching funds and the way they structured this law is when they do invest in private sector energy and they use prevailing wage, they get much higher tax credits. So private industry is going to be spending hundreds of billions of dollars of matching funds, putting our folks to work. It's so innovative and it's so exciting. For the next 10 years, we're really looking at some good work ahead. And without the leadership of President Biden, we would not be facing the same thing, especially after what we just came out of. So it's a big deal.
And to the point of Nevada being a swing state, in 2020, Joe Biden's margin of victory there was in the tens of thousands. It's not a big state, about 1.5 million voters, about 3 million people living in the state overall. So knocking on a door in Nevada, it translates to a big effect going forward. One door in Nevada would be equal to knocking on 10 doors here in California, because that one voter has so much more power in Nevada. It's to the point of it being a swing state also. In 2022, when Catherine Cortez Masto got reelected, the voters in Nevada decided to replace their very pro-union Democratic governor with a Republican. So the voters in Nevada can go both ways on an issue in one election. In addition to Joe Biden, their other senator, Jackie Rosen, is up for re-election this year. So if Democrats are going to keep the U.S. Senate and keep turning out bills like the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we need to re-elect Jackie Rosen as well.
So will there be opportunities for members to precinct walk in Nevada this year?
Absolutely. Like Chris said, our program, we've done a program up there since 2008. And if you get in touch with your district, we'll probably start sending up volunteers in August to knock on doors ahead of the general election in November.
Yeah, and going back to your question about being a swing state, not to get to the weeds, but the electoral college is how we elect the president, and Hawaii and California are always deep blue. Utah's deep red, and those states are already kind of predetermined, but that Nevada's deep purple. So we always invest heavily up there, and it could swing the entire future of path of our democracy. And funny enough, the way Nevada is structured, where we put our resources in Washoe County, Clark County always goes big blue, the rurals go big red, and Clark County kind of tips the balance back and forth. So if you win, Washoe. So if you win Washoe, so goes the state. And there are many scenarios out there where Nevada could tip the presidency in one way or the other, and Washoe County could tip Nevada one way or another. So we're really committed to our Nevada program, and we think it could have impacts that echo down the ages. So I don't mean to be dramatic, but it is an important election year, and Nevada is an important state. We're going to be spending a lot of time up there, and we're hoping that the members, and I know you're going to be up there with us. It's going to be it's good work, but it's also a lot of fun too, and it's a great way to meet other folks from other districts and just kind of bond as a union over some common values.
How do we see the election cycle going with Hawaii and Utah this year? Do we have any big races in those states?
Nothing big in Utah. The Salt Lake City mayor got reelected last year in 2023, and that's a race that we usually do a lot of advocacy in because of the power that mayor has, despite the fact that the state overall is a very anti-union area. In Hawaii, we've got a whole team out there who runs politics and knows the on the ground situation out there much better than Chris or I can from here in California. And we're working with them on their election recommendations, endorsements. Their primary takes place in August, so we're not gonna be seeing anything for a few months there.
So just in terms of dates to calendar for our listeners, the primary election for California is March 5th, and we've already sent out some postcards to the members about key races. In June, we will have Nevada's primary for everything except the presidential race. Utah's primary election is June 25th, and Hawaii's is August 10th. And as we get closer to those dates, we'll be sending out more information right to the members in each one of those states, as well as running endorsements in the Engineers News. And the general election is November 5th. What are some things our members need to do in preparation for some of these elections?
So one important thing is to make sure that your voter registration is up to date. In some states, if you moved and you've updated your address with the DMV, that gets changed automatically, but not every state. So if you can go to your Secretary of State's website and check your voter registration, make sure that it's up to date so that you can vote in these important elections. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as you mentioned, check your Engineers News. We put out these lists of endorsements ahead of these elections. So take a look at those lists, carefully consider them before you sit down and fill out your ballot. And then check our website, our social medias. We will highlight campaigns like Aisha's, like Jesse Arreguin's, these key races that we think are particularly important. So you can learn more about the candidates that we endorsed.
What's the biggest ask this year for the members? I mean, what is it that we really want them to walk away with this?
Yeah, I would say that, politics has become so divisive, over the last 10 years. It's always been divisive, but it's just really gotten nasty. And I just would, ask the members that, we do come from a pure place in our organization and in our politics, and everything we're doing is for the betterment of the membership. And, I would ask them to think about that. And when they're looking at their ballots, just to know, if I could let every member know that, this stuff is vetted by you, your rank and file that you elect in your districts, that we are a democratic union, and we take our jobs very seriously because we're doing everything we can to protect your work and to secure a future for your family. So, and a big part of that is politics, and it is the system we live in. And so please vote. Please look at our recommendations. We're not telling you how to vote, but we are recommending who to vote for, and they've all been vetted. And they've been vetted according to the values that we all hold: good wages, good benefits, better life for you and your family.
So with that, you can attend your district meeting, the semi-annuals. You can talk to the PAC members that you, the district, have elected about who they've recommended and why. And then come out to our vote program. Come out and phone bank with us. Come out and walk with us. Get involved in these races because they are, like I said, so very important.
And participation in these events not only furthers, our union, but it helps you get to know other union members. There's a sense of community, a sense of giving back, and that you're doing more than just going to work every day. You're a part of something much larger than just yourself, which is sort of the special thing that happens in these vote activities, I think, right? It's about community.
Completely. I came on staff because of the vote program. I had something to plug into. And I think so many staff members, that's their first introduction to the union. The apprenticeship program and then also the vote program. And so if you do want to come on staff someday, it is a great on-ramp into learning about the union, learning about the funds, networking. I've seen guys get jobs on precinct walks where hey, I just got laid off. They're knocking on doors hey, my guy's hiring, my contractor's hiring. And it's just, that's how we work. We're there for each other. We're a brotherhood, we're a sisterhood. And, solidarity works when we all work together and we're all working for, these same common goals. And that's really what it's all about.
There has been, I think, an increase in labor awareness for a younger generation. We have the Starbucks organizing campaigns. We have what happened with the UAW. As older Americans retire, younger Americans are making up a larger share of the workforce. And these younger people statistically align with traditional goals of labor unions. So they're less likely to care about political party and more interested in making things, seeing that things actually happen. And unions have tended to be, since history, more successful at making these things happen.
Yeah, I mean, I love, I mean, that whole quiet quitting thing. I mean, I didn't even know what it was until the millennial, me and some of my millennial friends were like, oh yeah, because my generation, you know, we want to live and we want to work to live. We don't want to live to work. And that really struck me, some of those conversations, guys, because that's what we've been doing.
Unions have been doing that since
Yeah,
the
I mean,
beginning.
we're, you know, we
Paid
want,
time off.
you know, you work to live, you don't live to work. And to that end, that's why we have pensions. That's why you can retire as early as 55 in our main pension. And a lot of the public employee pensions is the same thing. It's like you put your time in, you raise your family, you send them to school, you buy a house, and you're able to have dignity and enjoy your life. And that's, you know, I mean, who doesn't want that? And that's,
Well, unions have fought for those things. And so
Yes.
how can we capitalize on this younger generation of Americans who are going to have more pull going forward? How can we organize them into our political efforts and help them understand that there's opportunities in politics for them?
well, I think this is part of what we're doing today. Your department has been doing a lot of this amazing work. Like we got to meet people where they're at. We're meeting them on Instagram, Facebook, podcasts, and I know other platforms come up, and some are less popular. And I think our message is the same, and I think it really resonates. And I think this generation really sees what value we bring, and I think it's really exciting. 20 years ago, I was kind of so cynical about the labor movement. We're this old dinosaur, but it really has been rejuvenated this last few years. And to me, it's just such an exciting, time to be part of, labor.
You both are so passionate about what you do. What's the best part of this job for you, Patrick?
I love the sheer number of different projects I get my hands in. Just this week, I was in Modesto working at the California Transportation Commission on an issue that was affecting operating engineers, carpenters, laborers, cross-union issue that had to do with funding for roads at the CTC. I was up here in Sacramento for a state building trades meeting where we were talking about the rest of the year and our endorsement processes. I was in San Francisco for the launch of Mayor London Breed's campaign. I go all over California and all over Nevada and Utah as well, and I get to work on these projects and get really, really deep on them. And then when the project's over, when the election's over, when we've moved on from that, I get to go someplace else and do it all again. And it's really rewarding that way.
Chris, what about for you?
That is such a hard question. I think that's the hardest question we had all day. I mean, it's just such an amazing organization that we work for, and for me, it's a real honor to serve as the capacity of the political director, because we are engaging on everything from last week. We were back east for a climate change conference, and we're actually, as we move to a green economy, we've got to be at the table. So our members, while we were at this climate change conference, we got a $426 million mega grant for building offshore wind. It's going to be this huge transformative project for our members in the future. So like this intersection of like fighting for the members, but also like the work that operating engineers does is so good for, the public and so good for the planet. And, we deliver clean water, we build safe transportation systems, and just like being at that intersection, being able to advocate, for changing the world, but also fighting for our members at the same time is just, I don't know, I can't even believe.
Very rewarding.
Yeah, I can't even explain what a blessed, I feel so blessed to be where I'm at and to come to work here every day and to work with people like you and Patrick and, the officers and in your staff. And it's just, it really is, I feel like I'm in a movie sometimes. It's pretty neat work, and it's good work, and it's for the right cause.
What's the hardest part about your job?
Just a lot of it, honestly, the hardest part for me is like a lot of the internal politics is so hard. within the labor movement, within the whole political structures, because we're not always on the same page with the laborers. We're not always on the same page with the carpenters or some of the other crafts, and trying to navigate really difficult conversations when your very good friends are on the other side of the table is not always easy for me, and that happens a lot. But that's part of the skill set we learn as negotiators, negotiating contracts. It's kind of the same skill set as we're trying to negotiate. With the environmental movement, they want to shut down all of our refineries. That can't happen next year. And then they want to build all this stuff so we come in, no, we want to build it all union, all the future energy. And as we transition into these new areas, just trying to, move those conversations forward is so hard sometimes. But I think the skill set that we've been given with our training is really helped us move the ball forward for our members. I don't know if kind of a convoluted answer, but
No, I mean, I understand. You try to find ways to compromise on these big issues, but it gets emotional.
yeah, it does, and especially it's when there's so much at stake for the planet, for our membership, for their work, for their families. It's really not easy to get it all right. We don't always get it right. We try to get it right as much as we can, and I think we do a pretty good job.
Back to your question about what's hard about the job. We were joking before we started that Chris and I see more of each other than we see of our wives, and it's a joke, but it's not that far off from reality. All that travel, all that going to all these places and getting stuck in on projects all over the place does take me away from my family quite a lot, and I know the members feel that too when they're rolling around for work, but it can be very hard.
Yeah, you can't do all this work and all these across 4 states and go home at night and be at home for dinner. Not very often.
Not very often, and yeah, especially in 2022. In 2020, when we were doing the presidential up in Nevada, I think I spent more time in a hotel room there. I think I spent enough time in a hotel room there to establish residency.
Well,
It's true.
it's the sacrifice you make for the bigger cause, right?
Well, yes, that's the hope.
Well, any closing thoughts on what else we should expect for this year?
Well, maybe I'm hoping we can come back and talk again in the fall, because there's going to be some really big ballot measures that are going to affect our members in November around transportation funding and infrastructure that could be transformative. So the presidential election, that's a whole other thing, but we got a lot of stuff internally in California that we've been really working hard on. Housing is a huge issue, and so we have some bond measures around that. Transportation around the Bay Area, the BART, all this stuff there's this huge transportation cliffs there because of COVID, and there's still the ridership is down, so those systems are facing some severe stress on their finances. So there's some really big issues we're going to be working through this year that we're going to be bringing to the voters and to the members to kind of and we'll be recommending those. And a lot of it's going to be work for us, and a lot of it's going to try to maintain the infrastructure of the Bay Area.
Yeah, and just stay tuned to podcasts like this, to the social medias, to the Engineers News, because I don't think that we can fully map out what the issues are going to be 6 months from now. We got some ideas, but things end up being
To
so
be determined.
dynamic.
Yeah.
But the biggest takeaway, pay attention to our endorsements, go to your district meetings, get hooked up with your district, participate in the vote program, and keep the conversation focused on our core values.
Yes.
Yes.